Hey,
How are you?
all right.
How do you manage to maintain your health in chaotic climate and chaotic work schedule?
Me?
Yeah.
Yeah, I probably don't. Yeah. Yes, it is. I spent a few hours working on this, and it was like
Because
all day, you know.
these 2 weeks were tough, like in terms of managing the climate for everyone. Suddenly temperatures drop.
Oh yeah, I know, and I think kids are kind of weak these days. Everyone's like, I went outside. It was like below 50, and now I can't go anywhere for a week because I'm sick. I was like, because you went outside, like, what are you made of sugar? Yeah. Like, it was been pretty intense this week, but I don't think it's as bad as it could be.
Elizabeth is here today.
Was that?
Elizabeth?
She is.
Yeah,
Okay.
she's here today.
Okay.
And yeah, I just checked with her and she's working on the Saturday night and just felt not really good for a couple of weeks.
Like sick,
Not really sick, I think some
mental.
mood.
Yeah. I mean, she's missed enough classes to fail, and not having communicated with us. I mean, so as soon as you notice that she misses like 2 classes in a row, you gotta let me know. Like, and
Yeah.
it's on me. I should have checked it. I missed it. I have been checking.
Yeah,
but-
that's also my problem. Like
Yeah.
you know, you mentioned like we should like CC you like
Yeah.
email, but you know we have a Instagram group chat, so we always communicate through that. And
Good morning. Come grab a seat. All right. How y'all doing? Pretty swag. That sounds good. I guess. Cool. See how this goes with a computer. So I'm going to introduce the last assignment today. Oh, really? You're right. Share. Copy. Okay, so you guys all have like the PDF of the assignment, so you feel free to like read along on that. I'm gonna talk through it first, and then show a little bit of a demo of how to start to achieve it. I'm not gonna demo all day today. I wanna spend the bulk of today's class period for you guys to get started onto the assignment. So there will be a few more kind of video recordings that will accompany this to help level up your skills in order to accomplish it. So a few more like technical kind of how-tos. But we're going to talk about the what it is today. So your last assignment is to make a triptych. You guys have probably seen triptychs in your art history classes, or if you've gone to museums, you might have seen these. This is probably the most famous one, the Garden of Earthly Delights by Hieronymus Bosch, that I can think of in the Western canon. Triptychs have been used all across the world, in the Eastern canon, Japanese and Chinese landscape paintings to kind of show, in this case, like a single scene that's divided up into three, so it can be rolled onto scrolls and then transported and sold. But also as ways to kind of divide or frame space and show maybe change over time through a seriality, through three different images that kind of relate to each other somehow. This is a type of format that has been used in lots of ways and starting to kind of come back within schools, I think. This is the Bartlett. These are not necessarily what we're going to be doing, but an idea of a single student kind of showing off their renderings in a group of three. And we're going to be making similarly large drawings. So each of you is going to make a 24-inch by 72-inch drawing, combined with two other of your partners that will make a 72-inch by 72-inch triptych, which will have a certain kind of beautiful effect in this room once we get them printed and pinned out, or pinned up on the walls. You guys maybe have seen the Drawing Architecture Studio lecture and the exhibit that's in the TBH is still kind of hanging out. There's a big drawing that's up on the balcony there. That is not necessarily a triptych per se, but it is kind of a composite drawing where there is like one overall frame, and then there's these kind of, let's say, I don't know what they are, like sides of buildings, these gray lines that divide up the overall image into a series of panels, let's call it. This is a different image by Drawing Architecture Studio, but mostly to show about like the scale and the impact of a drawing that's of this scale upon the viewer, upon the human who looks at it. I think these are like super compelling. So I'm gonna jump to the syllabus, and I'm gonna skip down to the bottom. There's a couple of images of big drawings that students of mine did in a similar class at the Art Institute. These are drawings that were done, these are 36-inch by 72, so they're a little bit bigger than what we'll be doing. And these were done by students who had never opened the computer before, much like you guys. Had never done Illustrator, much like you guys, and had never done architectural design before, much like you guys. So the point of this assignment is to allow you to kind of put a cap on this series of iterations. So you've done these like, I don't know how many, myriad little study models, and now you can kind of take that research that you've done and apply it to a larger design, a larger composition. I like to call these things worlds. You can see that they all kind of bleed off the edge of the page. It seems like we're looking at a crop of a larger world that keeps going. We could call them parks, we could call them landscapes, we could call them cities perhaps. They're still not quite buildings, or they're still not quite like architecture as you've necessarily thought of them. So the game is the same. We're still dealing with, we have color and shape. These two kind of elements that we get from the archive, the two archives, the Biodiversity Heritage Library and Library of Congress. And we're applying color and shape to think about things like proportion and scale and hierarchy and rhythm and flow, and can we establish kind of a front and a back and a side and something that's really important and something that's less important. These sort of basic compositional elements is still what we're playing with. Just because we're kind of making a quote final drawing doesn't mean these immediately turn into condos or like a city park or something like that. All right. I think another thing I'd mention about these drawings, I find them really beautiful when they engage the human body. So each of your drawings are going to be at the similar scale to what we did the oblique hand-drawn drawings, assignment 7 I think it was. 1/8 inch equals a foot. So a person is still going to be nice and small on here. And I think, this one, Subine's here on the right, she does a beautiful job of kind of engaging with, ooh, I should plug this in, engaging with the large scale, so these things that are like really big, and then taking those shapes that she has as like these really big kind of orange and cream things and scaling them down to the size of a bench or a piece of street furniture. So if you are to do that, and if you are to kind of think about really big things and really small things, then all of a sudden you have a range of scales that you're dealing with, and your composition becomes much more rich. So that's one thing I would think about with these. There's also like a variety of techniques. Most of these are digital, though this one has got like hand drawing on top of a digital Rhino model. There is no quote right answer for how you can accomplish this drawing. You may do the whole thing digital, so all Rhino modeled and then making a digital vector line drawing and then an Illustrator compositing them together. Or you can Rhino model up to a certain point, just get like a framework of how this thing is going to be laid out, get some colors and textures and shapes on there, print it, and then take trace paper and trace over the top and make a hand drawing, similar to what you guys did in previous assignments. Obviously it's big, but we have 3.5 weeks to work on this. There's plenty of time, I think, to engage this. And the bigness is on purpose. The bigness is that you guys lose a little bit of control and kind of have to commit to a process and kind of see what happens when you are engaging with this large drawing. Copy and pasting is your friend. So whether it's copying and paste, like you hand draw a little bit, scan it, put it in Photoshop, and then copy and paste it around that way, or in Rhino, making a few elements, like these ones we see on the wall here, copying and pasting or arraying those elements across the landscape to kind of fill up the page. Most of these things you see, there's only a few elements in here that create the entire texture of this. Okay? So I'm going to read through, not word for word, all of this. So you guys during class today should sit down and kind of read through this with your partners. But the objective is working with 2 partners from your studio room. So it could be from, doesn't need to be your TA group. It could be across the TA groups, but try to keep it within the room. So that way you're not pulling attention of your TAs like across walls here. You're tasked with creating a triptych drawing of an elaboration of, let's say, 1 or 2 of your study model composition ideas into a large composition that serves to bring together the design and production skills you learn in the class. So this is an opportunity for you to continue to experiment and test out ideas that you found interesting and that you found useful in previous assignments. We'll work on this for the next few weeks. You will follow the weekly steps as a group in order to achieve this. So I know how students work. You guys see fall break coming up around the corner. Our final review is the week after fall break. You're gonna be like, I'm just gonna do it then, like in between turkey and gravy and stuff. And I guarantee you, if you leave it all until fall break, you're gonna be unhappy and the results will be subpar. So try to stick to the schedule, and over the next 2 weeks, to continue to make progress. All right. There will be a little bit of work that needs to be done over the fall break, but the more progress you make the next 2 weeks, the more time you can spend eating turkey. All right. So each student will create their own oblique drawing, size 24 inch by 72 inch, on the scale of 1/8 inch equals 1 foot. I did wrong little thing here. They should collaborate with 2 other students to produce a triptych size of 72 by 72. We have 184 students in here as of now. That doesn't equally divide by 3, so there's going to be a couple of groups of 2. I'd prefer the minimum amount of groups of 2 and the maximum amounts of groups of 3. It's going to be much more interesting for you to work kind of as a trio than as just 2 people. You're each going to produce your own drawing, but you should kind of work as a team to kind of think about what would be the theme or the composition, or do you share some elements that kind of you can use, or do you design some elements together that kind of bleed across the page. Cool, so each student should prepare the base of the oblique drawing that is produced using the Rhino template and Illustrator files. I'm going to show you those next. But students can use a variety of techniques to, quote, finish or illustrate the drawing. Kind of mentioned this already. It could be entirely digital or a combination. I also have on here, each student shall create at least 2 11 by 17 eye-level perspective drawings. We'll consider this like extra credit, let's say. Focus on the big drawings, and then if you finish that, at the end we can change our camera and we can look at this thing from eye level. It's really not that hard if we have a nice Rhino model. It's in fact extremely easy, so we can pop out a few like eye-level perspectives, but I don't want that to freak you guys out, so let's call it extra credit, and we'll focus on the diptych. Okay. So using the provided PDF templates, I missed a step here. I missed the whole page. Zoom out. So you may use elements from your 4th wave of digital collages, so these ones we see on the walls. You may use elements from your physical collages. So some of you have started to 3D scan. I'll show you a little bit today. I'll make another little video of this as well. You can 3D scan your paper models and use those to populate your designs. It's really easy in Rhino to kind of crop or clip or split parts of your 3D scan model that you can kind of put to work. So there's lots of ways to accomplish this. Let's talk schedule though. So here we are. The words have kind of changed a little bit, but we got 2 weeks. Today's the 6th before our fall break. And then the week after, we have Monday class, and then Wednesday, the 29th, is our final review. Okay. There is another class, or another week of classes after our final review. So what we're going to use that as kind of archiving and making a portfolio. So it's pretty quick, but I imagine if I were you, I would want to maybe take another pass at it after your final review, because these are going to be awesome pieces for your portfolio. Okay, so day by day. Today's the 6th. You're going to select your partners and you're going to begin designing. Make sketches of possible layouts and ideas of how the triptych can come together on trace paper using the provided templates. I'll show the templates in a second. Wednesday, design day. So working in class, elaborate your Rhino, your Rhino model with your chosen 3D sketches into a larger layout, or make more elaborate sketches on paper of what your composition will be. All right, basically a work day. Monday the 13th, pin-up of progress. So come to class with like, it doesn't need to be at 1-to-1, it can be a shrunken down version of it. Maybe it's a tiled 11 by 17s of a kind of larger scale, but we want to have like printouts of your progress to see where you're at. And then the big thing that day is decide on a rendering style and do a test sample. So messing with the lights in Rhino and the materials, and maybe doing a test of the Make 2D, so that see if that works. Or if you're going to do hand drawing, like get trace paper out, get your ink pencils out, like print out part of a larger composition and like test it. Do a sample. I can't stress how important that is. Usually students just work in Rhino and work and design, and then at the very last minute we'll decide how it looks, and we'll kind of cross our fingers and hope that we are very good at last minute thinking. We are not good at last minute thinking. We are good at planning and we're good at testing, so we're going to do that. Wednesday the 15th, workday and test sprints. Ideally, you'll have a pin-up of 1-to-1 progress before everyone leaves for break. So this is kind of your chance to get as far as you can, show where you're at, and get some feedback before you disappear for a week. The break timing is a little bit unfortunate, but it is what it is. No classes, the 20th and 22nd. I am available if you guys want to like shoot me, or TAs will probably be available, like images of your progress. If you want some feedback over that week, like just let me know. I'll give you some feedback. Monday the 27th, I'm calling it 95% completion. So if you're done by that Monday, great. You can be 100% complete. That way you can plot and print and trim and just be over it. Otherwise, let's get to 95% completion by that Monday. So you're just making some final tweaks and then plotting that day or the next day. Our review is at 9 a.m. on the 29th in the morning. If you're trying to plot or print before 9 a.m. on Wednesday, you're too late. It's not gonna work. The plotters will break. They'll probably catch on fire. There's gonna be something like horrible that's gonna happen that like is out of our control. So let's just say no one's gonna be plotting the morning before the review. All right, and yeah, Lowell has assured me that we have like lots of paper, lots of ink, and as long as we kind of plan ahead and plot the day before, we should be good. All right. You don't need to plot on photo paper. It's got like really nice, like high quality, like photo paper. It's a little bit more expensive. Like you don't need to use that. But if you do, I suggest like getting in touch with Lowell, sending an email, say, hey, I do want to plot a single 24 by 72 on photo paper. He's got a lot of it, but if all 200 of us decide that we want to plot of the nice stuff, he might need to order some more. So a little bit of planning there. Sound good? Schedule? It's fast. It's compressed. This is what we call a charrette. A charrette is a term that comes from the École des Beaux-Arts. Have I explained a charrette to you guys before? No? Okay, so has anyone heard the term charrette yet?
It's an illness, right?
Is it an illness? Yeah, it does sound like an illness, but no. That's Tourette's is a condition, but it's like that. Charrette is French word for cart. In the École des Beaux-Arts, where a lot of the Western tradition of art making came out of, which we're trying to fight against, they would have a deadline for when you had to finish your work, be it a sculpture or an etching or a plate or kind of whatever. And at the deadline, the teachers would come around with a cart through the studios, and students would put their stuff in the cart. And that was like pencils down, like you're done, time's up. So the charrette, this idea of like a cart that comes through and collects your drawings after a specified short amount of time, is a phrase that in architecture in particular we use a lot. And you're going to hear it in your studios going forward. You'll hear it kind of in workplace and offices a lot, because often it's like a design charrette, meaning that you're doing like the design work for like a larger construction process. And we don't get paid a lot for design, so we do it really fast. And so you'll sit down like in a group with a bunch of people and trace paper and pencils, and you'll charrette it out. You'll kind of sit down and jam with a high amount of intensity in a short amount of time in order to make some decisions, basically. That's kind of what a charrette is. So we have a 3.5 week long charrette, which is fairly long, but it's still going to feel kind of compressed. So what you should do is just like get comfortable making decisions and like moving forward, and know that this won't be your first, it won't be your only charrette. This is the first of many that you're going to do over the course of your design career, especially those of you in architecture. Those of you in sustainable design, you'll do charrettes too, just on a different scale, different size. Okay. A few things here up at the top before I get into the steps. You want to combine a line drawing, so a black and white, outlines, either done by hand or done in the computer, with a rendering, so a color image. A lot of what we see on the walls here are renderings, right? We are not making a final rendering of your project. We are making a drawing. There is a difference between a drawing and a rendering. Basically, just keep in mind that you want to have a black and white thing and a color thing, and we're going to composite them, put them together inside of Photoshop or Illustrator. Often students will just be like, well, I spent forever Rhino modeling this thing. I'm just going to hit the render button and then like that's it, and call it good. I'm trying to teach you guys like how to gain control over your process and over the product that emerges from it. So just keep this in mind. Two things that get layered together. Similar, yeah. So you should think about like overlays of line work and details. So people, animals, plants, furniture, textures, like all that stuff is a great thing to, I think, hand draw and scan and then layer into your drawings with Photoshop or with Illustrator. You're not allowed to download 3D models of anything off the internet. Okay, nothing. No people, no trees, no benches, no buildings, no windows, no toilets, no stairs, nothing. All right. So everything in this comes from the archives. Same way we've been doing the rest of the semester. Either from the archive or you draw it with your hands. Okay. And then a few tips here. Just as your model gets more complicated, make sure you are using the shaded and wireframe mode, and make sure you're using blocks. So more on that later. You're going to kind of want to watch your file size as it gets a little bit bigger. These two things will help you. If your computer is going slow and you're like, I don't know why, the first thing I'm going to ask is, are you in rendered mode? 9 times out of 10 you are, and that's why your computer goes slow. All right. Okay, so I'm going to read through the steps here fairly quick. I'm not going to read every word here. First step is to find 3 students to work with, or another one if we don't have enough for 3. Talk to each other. Show each other your work that you've done so far. Talk about what's good, what's bad from your physical models, from your digital models. Think about how they can maybe relate to each other through this composition, and choose whether you're going to make your drawings in portrait or landscape. And here on the left is 3 vertical 24 by 72 drawings with a 12-foot grid on them, and on the right are 1, 2, 3 72-inch by 24 tall drawings arranged in a landscape. So pick now, today, what your format's going to be. There's like different formats will yield different designs, let's say. Think about, use the provided templates with the blank oblique 12-foot grid. Sketch some layouts of your overall design. So in the Google Drive, there are a number of template files. For example, this one. Let's open it up. This is a single PDF that has 3 rectangles on it. I would print this thing on 11 by 17 scale to fit, and then you can lay it on your table with some trace paper over the top, and then like I would increase the size of it, and then you guys can kind of draw what you think your overall composition might be. Basically, are there some elements that bisect the borders or the margins and connect these things together? Rivers, roads, paths, a coastline. Those are maybe ways to think about it. The grid, do you mess with this grid? This is the 12-foot grid. That's the same as your 9 square from the analog physical collages. But again, the same rules apply. You can mess with the grid. So same as we did in the 4th wave, where we like squished the grid, or we rotated it, or we bent it in different ways. Like you can play with this base grid, and maybe that's a way to start to connect between the two. There's another template in there. So horizontal single. So there's a PDF that just has a single a single 72-inch by 24-inch, and if you don't trust me, you can do Control-R, turn your rulers on. We can see 74 by 22. It's pretty big. Remember, we're working in a group to make these triptychs, but each of you guys are making your own drawing. Each of you is making one of these, either a horizontal one or a vertical single, a vertical one. I just want to reiterate that. I know working in teams can be stressful sometimes. It's going to require effort for you to kind of meet each other where you're at and try to work together to kind of compose the overall idea for what this triptych might be. But at the end of the day, you're doing your own thing. You're making your own model. You guys are going to start kind of today designing together as a team. You're going to kind of go away. You're going to work on your Rhino models. You're going to make some decisions on your own. You're going to come back together. You're going to show what you worked on. You're going to tweak it based on input from each other. And then you're going to kind of go back and finish your own drawing. So there's a certain amount of kind of big picture thinking here that I think is going to be, I hope, invaluable to you. For the third years, we're working as partners, and this is the first time the third years have ever worked as partners in the School of Architecture, and they're like, whoa, this is so hard, and it's like emotionally like a lot of work for them. In the real world, in business and architecture and construction, little to nothing is done alone. Pretty much everything is done as a team. So it's not like a secondary skill that you develop, but it's a primary skill that you should work on and you should practice. And in school, we have a perfect opportunity to do so. So it's not easy, but it requires you to kind of communicate, be open, use your pencils and to draw and sketch, which is why these templates are so important. And then today, you're gonna like actually put some marks on the paper already. But it should be fun too, because it should take off something like the load. Because you can be like, well, I don't know, I'm in decision block. I can't make any decisions. Turn to your partners and say, what do you think? And then do what they say, and then keep moving, because there's only so much time. And if you just get stuck, or if you get blocked, creatively blocked, you won't be able to move forward. Then you'll get more stressed out. Then you'll be unhappy, and you won't have as much fun. So use your partners to help you kind of have more fun. Cool. There's also AI versions of those templates, so Adobe Illustrator versions of those templates that you can open up, and that would be something you can use as like the base underlay for your compositions, so you know you're on the right size. Okay. Yeah, think about whether you decide to share elements or blocks. Like maybe you guys trade, like you make some little blocks in Rhino and then like give it to your partners, and then they can use them. Or maybe you guys are like, we're totally different. We're gonna have starkly different vibes and starkly different kind of attitudes with how we approach these drawings. But maybe the narrative, or maybe the theme, or something that less visual connects the three together, or the two together. Think about, is there a narrative or a story that links the triptychs together? Consider these, as we have every single composition that we've made this semester, to be open-ended and not necessarily real or functional architecture. So no condos, no even houses necessarily. Museums might be okay. Like kind of open-ended public spaces is what I'm looking for. We're not immediately, because we're doing a real project, like thinking about working for developers. You will do that later in your career. Now we are going to tell stories about public space, or about this kind of new world that we're creating. And again, the reason I call it the world, or the reason I call it a world, is I'm a strong believer that the role of architects is not to recreate the old world, but to project us into a new one, right? And so this is maybe a little bit more creative way for you guys to do so. And I hope that you can kind of continue that attitude like in future studios. Cool. Don't give it a real world location. So not Chicago, it's not Champaign, it's not Mars, it's not any place real. Don't worry about that. Okay, next semester we're gonna engage a site. Do decide how you're gonna render your people. Having a consistent style of people or scale figures inside of your drawings can help bring the triptych together, can help kind of bring these disparate ideas together. There is in the templates file a Adobe Illustrator scale people file, and these are just like little silhouettes. And I have 16th, 8th, and quarter. You guys can have this for later studios. We're only going to use 8th. Everyone's using 8th here. And if you are to like copy and paste this like into our template, there's the scale of a little person. So this grid is like a 12-inch or 12-foot center to center on the grid. So this person's like a little less than 6 feet, you know, rotated on its side. Like we can scale off these oblique drawings for the most part. So you can kind of see like versus the overall composition, how big that person is. They're pretty small. You can use those, there's these little scale vector people. I think they're nice because they're not distracting. And you can change the color, make them pink, make them yellow, make them blue, make them whatever. Or you should draw some, like that contact sheet or that collection of a bunch of little people. Like you can make your own. Draw little people, scan it, and then use them the same way you would copy and paste these little guys. Do allow your composition to run over the edge of the page. Cool. Okay, there is a Rhino template. So you want to open that template, and it looks like this. It's fairly empty. There is a grid on the ground. So that's if I type distance, and I click between two of these, it's a 12-foot grid. So you guys can change this, you can make your own. It's just an array of boxes across here. And actually I use Grasshopper because it's easier, I can show you guys how to do that. The pink are these two layers called the axon picture plane. I should call it oblique picture plane, but these two, one of them is vertical and one of them is horizontal. And you can see there's a line that goes through. That's the line of the camera. And I'm gonna show you kind of how to set that up. There's already a camera set up for you. If I type named view, there is one named view called oblique. If I double click it, it will reset my camera such that I'm looking at these two rectangles in a flat orientation, like directly from that line that I had drawn there. The other way to kind of imagine this is under view, set camera, I can place the camera and the target, and that will be the cameras at one end and the target's the other end. And because my projection, my camera projection is parallel, and we're making parallel drawings here, I get this nice flat point of view. So basically what this thing is it's rotated 45 degrees. We kind of look at the side view here, 45 degrees from the side, and then from the top view, it's 45 degrees from straight. And so that gives us this like nice 45-degree angle oblique drawing. You guys don't need to worry about kind of constructing this. You can just like leave it as it is. If you want to like skew it, like rotate it at different angles, we can do that. And that would be just by taking these, and I have them locked, taking these layers, and then in the top view, rotating them slightly, and then repeating that set camera, and then you'll have like a skewed oblique drawing. But let's keep it simple and just use this, okay? So what I would do is copy and paste, objects from your other digital collages into this one. Save it, I'll call it a new name. Maybe get in the habit of like saving these like every single day, like a new Rhino file. And yeah, and this is where we're gonna kind of make our drawings from. All right. It's already 10, and I'm not gonna go too far, so I'm gonna elaborate this a little bit more later, but I'm gonna show you one that kind of is a bit of an example. So this guy I'm doing the vertical one. So I'm just looking at not covering the entire square, right? Like I'm just kind of covering the strip that I can see through that specific direction. And did I copy and paste it in? No. And this thing is basically made up of, let's see if rendering breaks this, folded little barn walls and bent algae extrusions. and these are rather randomly populated across this thing. It looks like the textures broke and didn't go with it. Bummer, I lost the algae. But you get the idea that it's basically like copy and paste. You can kind of see the grids, the columns. I basically put a surface over the top of it and like slice it, and so these columns don't go all up the same height. Some of the columns are shorter and some are taller. You can also like move them in different directions if you want. But this only has like 3 elements. It has like the drawing, it has the line work, or it has the grid, it has the algae, and it has the barns. I'm calling these barns like walls, and we'll call like the curved algae things like landscape elements, or like landscape surfaces. What we're gonna do, there's 2 ways that we can kind of, and I'm gonna copy just some of these in, so my computer is gonna freak out. Let's ungroup. I'm using groups to put together like all of the barn walls, and I'm using blocks to say like this thing is like a block. I'm just gonna copy and I'm gonna paste into this template. And this is going to be drastically simplified just for the sake of my computer, and because I'm streaming on YouTube, just to show you the kind of overall workflow here. You'll have to, it works just fine on Anywhere. If you guys, or if your computer is struggling, use Anywhere. You'll have much better performance on there. I'm just having issues with streaming and doing Rhino at the same time. Okay, so in order to create the composite, we need a color, the rendering, and we need the line drawing. Let's do the color one first. So this is just 2 elements in here, but I'm gonna open up my named views, I'm gonna double click my oblique, and I could change my view mode to rendered. I should put some poles in there, but it is what it is. It's just these 2 elements. And I could do view capture to file. And this just makes a screenshot of what I see at a certain resolution. The main thing, if you do this technique or the render technique, is to adjust your resolution. If you leave it as it is, when you blow this thing up to a really big drawing, it's gonna look pixelated. It's gonna look bad. So change your resolution. And you can increase the scale of it, or you can do custom resolution, and we can pick one that's like exactly the size of, or I would say make it bigger than your 24 by 30 or 24 by 72, and then you can crop it in Photoshop afterwards. If you increase the scale button, that will also increase the size of it. But you'll have to do a little bit of math to figure out the pixels. That's the fast way, the really easy way to do it. The little bit slower way, but higher resolution way, is to actually render this. And you're gonna wanna have like probably some kind of big ground surface. And I'm just gonna give this a material so we can see it. I really don't want to sit here all day, so we will see. Make it pink. View. Oblique. Let's get some columns in there. Okay, so you can kind of see like on the surface there's like a little bit of shadow that's kind of being cast on the flat surface by these objects. That shadow will not be crisp until you actually ray trace it, meaning hit the render button. So the render menu, render button. Again, to change the scale of this, we'll go down to the bottom to render properties. It's going to be a little bit different on a Mac for this step for sure, but the idea is the same. Change the resolution, make it nice and big. When you render, do some tests at smaller resolution because it takes longer to do. This is like not the fastest process in the world, so I would maybe have your dimensions be smaller to start, so you get the light right and get the compositions right, and then we can do a custom viewport, and you're going to want to crank this up. I think our actual resolutions, I'll get the number for you guys, like 5,000 something by I think 1,600, so something like that. And then I want to increase the quality of it. So Rhino Render doesn't have a lot of settings on it, but we have this one toggle for quality. And so again, for your final render, maybe increase the DPI to like 150. 72 DPI is good for web-based artwork. 120, 150 is good for like printed artwork. 300 DPI is good for like really high quality printed artwork, or like stuff you're going to enlarge, things that you don't want to lose information if you like turn it into a mural or a poster or something. So we're probably fine with like 150 or something. I want to shrink this down again. We'll just zoom in here a little bit. And then after you do render, process the light, and we can sort of see it sort of pixelated as I'm on V-Ray here. Let's go back to current renderer, Rhino Render. V-Ray super great. I can show it to you more next semester. Let's just stick with Rhino Render for now. It'll look a little bit different. V-Ray and Rhino, these are like ray traced renderers, or like realistic, physically based renderers. So if you guys have seen like a Pixar movie, that's kind of the same vibe, really realistic lighting. And you can see that the shadows are kind of starting to have definition, right? And this will look really nice with all the wires on those grids there. And you can see even this one at a smaller resolution is taking some time, and there's not like a timer that will tell you like how long it's going to be, but there is like some numbers down here. Got 1,000 out of 1,500, so we just let that go. When you do your final render, I would suggest getting it all set up, doing some tests, and then popping up the resolution, hitting the render button, and then going to bed, going to sleep, waking up in the morning, and then you'll have a nice like juicy high resolution render that'll be ready in the morning. When it's ready, I can't see it right now because it's not done, but there's a save image button right here. And so we want to save the image as a PNG or a TIFF or something. I'm gonna reduce the file size even more so we have something to work with. So I have it under final quality, that's why it's taking forever. Let's pop this down to like back to 72. And this should be much faster. So I just have the sun on here. You guys can play with lights. I think Yes, in the template there is it's turned off by default, but there's a layer that's lights, and that layer has two big lights, one on either side, that are big rectangular lights. And so if you want to have like one side being blasted with one color and the other side being blasted with another color, or have one side just have like yellow natural light and the other side have none, you can use the two of those. I recommend not getting too crazy with lights. If you start adding in lots of lights into your scene, it will take forever to render, because every single light is like multiplies the number of projections of light particles that it's calculating as it goes through. But just FYI, there is some that are already set up in there. Okay, so I'm gonna let this kind of crank a little bit. Let's go back to the, should take a few seconds and be done. Let's go back to the assignment. So there's named views there. We have design, copy and array. We can talk about this more as you go. We're making a rendering. And then the next step is to make a line drawing. So there's two ways to make a line drawing. There's the hacky, fast way, and then there's a little bit slower, more control way to get really beautiful drawings away. I'm gonna show you both, just so you know both, and eventually you'll choose to do the beautiful way. Actually, this is almost done. I'm gonna close some files in Illustrator here. So Illustrator is going to be your favorite tool. You could use Photoshop for part of this. Ideally, as you kind of learn this stuff, you'll find that hammers for nails, screwdrivers for screws, like Photoshop's good for some things, Illustrator's better for other things. But you could just use Illustrator for this to put the raster render and the vector line drawings together. I don't know what's going on. Let's see. Okay, the render's ready. So it's ready. I'm gonna hit save. And again, this is a really simple little test. Slow as molasses in January. Crazy. All right, let me close this thing. Okay, so quick hacky way first. Quick hacky way is to change your view mode to pen. And by changing it to pen mode, it makes like this line drawing, which it's doing some funny things where the lines are going under or over the other one. But I can adjust how this looks under my display options. And so particularly there's two things that I would do. So under your display modes, like pen mode here, if I click copy, it will copy it, and then I can change it. So specifically the background, by default it's like this sort of cream like paper color. It looks like kind of fake paper. Just change it to white. So make your solid color white. And then under your objects button, we want to increase the thickness of things. So specifically, where is it? I guess it's under curves here. So there's like curve and line settings. You can increase the width of this from like 2 to 3. Like that would just make lines thicker. Or we just leave it as a default. I made a custom one, so let's go to copy append. Didn't make it white. Solid color. White. Okay, so now I got a white drawing. So at this point, you could, again, reset your named views. I'm zoomed in here for an example. We could print or screenshot, and this will just print whatever I see. But again, I want to make sure that my named view is correct, so I'm looking down the barrel of that camera. And this one, I'm just gonna do, we can do an image. Doesn't matter too much. I want to see the window, so I can draw a little window here. Let's make this 24 by 24, a little bit smaller. Pen mode drawing. So I think this was good in a pinch, but it looks bad. You don't have a lot of control over like the thickness of things, but it will work. So let's, in Illustrator, back to Illustrator. This is a 3D print software, we're not gonna worry about it. I'm not gonna work on the templates, and I'm just gonna open up I've got a render and I've got a pen mode drawing. Probably should like crop this in Photoshop first, but I'm gonna skip that step for the sake of time and just drag and drop these both into Illustrator. And this would be like dragging and dropping onto the template. Floating windows. And let's do the other one. So let's do the pen mode drawing. This one I'm gonna actually wanna do in Photoshop because I need to delete the background. While that opens. So really fast way, you could try to run the image trace command on it, but it's gonna be such a big drawing that it will crash your computer. So avoid that and do Photoshop instead.